Sungaranga to Sungaranga.
It,
I don't know. It depends if you pronounce it with the Japanese accent, I imagine. Because
so the
Tasoranga conundrum. The conundrum.
Is that it?
You could just call it conundrum.
Is that the name of the spaceship? Yes. Right. And then the conundrum being, well, no. So basically, this next episode, which I remember vaguely, and I've watched it quite a few times, and I do get like, oh, there's the character that's like they arrive on a spaceship, and something. A lot of it is so much is happening. There's a little creature called the Pating, which is a very silly name for a creature that eats everything. It's a bit like that character out of Futurama. You've also got a pregnant
Nibbler.
You've also got a space. Thank you, Nibbler. You also got a lady who flies a spaceship like this with her hands, but she's not done it for a while, so she's a bit worried it's not going to work out. And somebody dies, and there's it. I can remember the bit where they're flying a spaceship through space, but mainly we're seeing it from the inside the spaceship. We don't see quite what's in the spaceship. So it feels. I feel terrible, but I can't really quite remember what happens in this, despite seeing it quite a few times.
For me, the opening third of this episode is cracking. It's really good. We're doing Alien. Let's face it, this is what this is, Alien or Aliens, depending on your take on it. And that's fair enough. Doctor Who can borrow from the best, on the cheap, relatively speaking. And I actually thought this would have been a great episode if the fam had decided to stay behind in the last episode and we had an episode just focusing on the Doctor. Because undoubtedly, because we have our attention split four ways, the tightness of the narrative is diminished by it. If we just focused on Jodie and her interactions with the characters in this, I think, had, of all the episodes this season, the real potential to be a classic.
Yeah.
And after that first third, it just falls apart. And my attention just went. I mean, the second the monster comes on and it's like, oh, it's a comedy monster like the Adipose. I like the Adipose. They were quite cool. But really can't really see him the once, and then it's always in the background because we've only spent enough money to show that bit of CGI at once. The guest cast, for the most part, apart from the Doctor, the guy who sacrificed his life, I liked him, he was good. The rest of them, they were just there. And Ryan, Ryan, who, as I say, has been elevated by rewatch to my favourite companion. I just feel he's just diminished by this episode again because he's just brought back to being his trauma as his central character trait. And I
did like the bit at the beginning of the episode. This is where it's not very. I've watched it quite a few times, and it keeps fading in and out. I can't quite remember bits, but I remember a bit where the Doctor is arriving in a spaceship or something, and she's making it worse for herself. She's running up and down a corridor. She's all confused. She's going to make the spaceship crash if she doesn't calm down. And the doctor that she meets has to calm her down, and she's causing problems. Again, I really like that. Rather than the Doctor walking in and going, blimey, this is really good. I know what I'm doing. I know this is great. She, again, is out of control, making mistakes. And that's not a sexist thing. I really like this vulnerability of this character screwing up. And I thought, this will be what it is all the way through the episode. And it isn't. And then, as you say, the Nibbler shows up. And it slightly spoils it. It reminds me, again, I'm thinking of Doctor Who comic strips when they had the Seventh Doctor. This is very everything, where a story would be quite serious, like the Planet of the Dead. There's a really good two-parter where the Doctor arrives on the planet and he meets all of his old companions, and then later on he meets all of his doctors, but they turn out to be these scary aliens. But the problem is that scary aliens look a bit silly. They look like cartoons. And so what you've got here is you've got this really good alien thing, as you say, on the spaceship. I think you've got far too many things going on at the same time. So you've got the pregnant man and the other. The guy who plays the pregnant man, who is fantastic, by the way, in Upload, another series. I like that. That was a nice little touch. That was the little bit of comedy that was there. But again, too many characters with all the companions, friends of the Doctor, just
just diminished this episode into a morass. It's a mess by the time we get to the end.
Yeah, because I can understand, like, if you want to sort of do world building, that's different than having about 9 characters that you've got to all focus on in 45 minutes. We haven't mentioned the ratings here at this point. So remember, of course, we started off with 10, and then we got to 9, then we're getting to 8, going down to 7. Now, people claimed by the end of this season we'll be down to about 6 million. People say, oh my goodness, Jodie Whittaker lost 4 million viewers from the beginning to the end. All seasons do this, or very rarely do they dip. And if anything, the next 3 episodes more or less have the same ratings, which means people are tuning in, which is really cool. So the Tenengra Conundrum, I'm not trying not to do. To what? Say it.
Saranga.
Is it Saranga? The Saranga Conundrum, which you feel like possibly is an anagram of a better episode.
Yeah.
So I imagine I'm gonna give it. I don't like giving it a 4 out of 10 because that seems mean. So I'm gonna give it a 5.
I'm gonna give it a 3 because then we average to a 4.
Right.
This was the first episode where I realised the biggest problem with this season is great setups in many cases, or even good setups, and then they just fall off and my attention diminishes. And this one crystallised for me everything I have at issue with this season of Doctor Who. Full stop. So
sorry to repeat myself. That's the thing with Chibnall, is he has these really cool ideas, doesn't know what to do with them. We'll have this and we'll have this and we'll have this and his. Right, that's great. What are you going to do with them? We've just got them, and that's a shame because I feel like if he gave these ideas to somebody else, like apparently the library episode that Stephen Moffat did, the 2-parter, I forgot what it's called now, with the silence in the library.
Yeah,
that one. That was ideas that he was given by Russell T Davies. He's like, I want a future companion of the Doctor. I want a library. I want creatures you can't see. I want this. I want this. Off you go now. And I
see that. It's a broad. There is this broader question about the Doctor Who showrunner always being the lead writer as well, and that's probably a topic for another day. But yeah, I think with Chibnall, you're dead right. That's
some great ideas. Give them to somebody else. Do a Irving Kershner directs Empire Strikes Back. Let someone else play with your toy. Do a really good job. So we both get quite low there. So now this is one I actually really like. I know the acting is a bit in places, but I kind of like Demons of the Punjab. When I watched it, I was like, I didn't know this thing about history. I thought the tension was really scary. I thought the aliens turning out to not be baddies after all. I liked, again, it's a bit like it homages for me the Aztecs, where you're in history, things are messed up, we can't fix them. Oh dear. And it's a reminder that, like, in history and things go wrong. Let's try and make sure that doesn't happen again. And I really like this episode a lot.
For me, I had the same issue as I had with Rosa.
Okay.
We didn't need the aliens.
Oh.
I think, as again a straight historical, tackling something that for many British people would make them feel, rightly so, very, very uncomfortable, told powerfully with a cast. I like the cast, I have to say, in this and performances. I think this could have been a 9 out of 10. The aliens for me diminished it, because suddenly it becomes, here we're talking about this, the partition of India, this thing that happened and forced by British colonialism. Awful. And its impact on the lives of Yaz's family, and in a really impactful way. But these alien observers are watching it, and now they're celebrating this guy's life, and it's yet another alien race from before the dawn of time itself, who we're never going to hear from ever again.
I agree with you. I do like the fact that you don't have to always have aliens in Doctor Who. And imagine if you're watching the Aztecs and suddenly the Daleks showed up. It wouldn't work. For me, like,
I don't know. That might be quite an entertaining episode.
Right, see, but with the Demons of the Punjab, they're not as incongruous as the space racist in the other episodes.
No.
But yeah, I know what you mean. But I think the visuals caught me. I like the idea of these aliens showing up. But as you say, the story should be about real history.
I thought the costuming was particularly on point in this episode. I really thought that is definitely worth noting. Conversely, this was the episode when I realised I was tired of the soundtrack. I felt it's just too ambient. It doesn't feel like it's stirring my emotions as much as it could be. There are a few moments maybe where it does, but for the most part, it's just music. And I really found myself missing someone with Murray Gold's level of expertise. And
well, there are a lack of, there is a lack of motifs. I think you've got this many characters, many assistants, companions, FOD, friends of the Doctor.
Yeah.
But they should all have a little thing each.
I mean, by the conclusion of this episode, the music should be making me weep. It really should, because the things that are happening, the fact that this is Yaz's grandmother, lived through these times, it's absolutely shaped her life. Yes, so there's an uplifting moment at the end, but I should be sort of taken down emotionally by the music and then brought back up by it. The performances were good doing that, but the music failed to be as powerful as many of the performances in this episode.
I mean, I feel like the Doctor Who hasn't really done historicals like this for I don't know, like Hartnellness, to be honest. Yes, there's but you got the Time Warrior, which is back in time, and you've got bits of Peter Davison ones as well. But to suddenly have this as a contemporary tale again, I mean, it's not written by Chris Chibnall. It's written by a different writer, and it really shows. I think when I mentioned the acting, there was just one performance where somebody shows up in a cart and they're talking back and forth, and I couldn't tell quite whether they were being sarcastic or funny. Threw me a little bit, but I did really care about the people, and I thought, this is really interesting. And that is the thing, Doctor Who trying to do something different, and not always.
On the other hand, though, we had yet another discussion between the fam on relationships and interrelationships, and I just went, again. And an overriding message of believing in yourself being brought forward, and I just again, that seems a recurrent theme from earlier in this season. So I felt, like I said, I felt of all the episodes I rewatched, this is the one I liked so much more than the first time round, and it really is the episode I think could have been an absolute standout classic, but just again fell at the hurdles.
So I'm going to give this, because I think I gave an 8 out of 10 to somebody else earlier on. So I might give this a 9. Because the visuals, for me, the visuals, the awkwardness, the characters, I really felt like this is, I don't think that Doctor's ever done this before. I was just like, everything sort of worked for me, even the aliens showing up. So I'm giving it quite a high mark, which I might regret later, but I did really like this one.
I on my first watching, I would have given this a 3. Because it really didn't gel with me, but on a rewatch, it's a 7.
Okay.
It really was worth the rewatch, this episode.
So now we've got Kablam, which is a kind of parody of working or Amazon or.
It's the life that Amazon is. Let's face it. There's no denying what it's supposed to be.
That's all it's about. I think it's quite interesting. I've enjoyed this one. It had creepy robots. It had it felt like Black Mirror.
It's the counter-capitalism story is as old as capitalism itself. But with all the debate we're having at the moment about AI and taking away from jobs, it felt so fresh rewatching this, even just a few years on. Again, this is still a good take on it. This was my favourite episode of the season, and the first time I watched it by a long way, and I enjoyed it all over again. I really did. It felt like an old-fashioned New Who episode. This would have sat well with the 9 or 10 quite happily in their eras. Lee Mack was an enjoyable, a little bit of a dark comic turn in it.
Yeah.
I'm not particularly a fan of Lee Mack, but I thought he did well with what he had to do. The plot is light. There's no denying it at the end of the day, but this is a character piece. This is the performances of the cast. This is the comedy episode, if anything, of the season, as near as it gets, even though people do die brutally, explosively.
For me, it feels like a Black Mirror episode. The bit where somebody dies from bubble wrap. Quite a dark joke.
No, don't squeeze the bubble wrap.
It feels
it genuinely made me laugh out loud that moment. And I'm thinking, should I be laughing at someone's been blown apart by bubble wrap? But actually, a nice little touch. What do you have in the box? What's ubiquitous? Oh no, it's the deadly bubble wrap.
Yeah.
which is a bit of a real juxtaposition with the previous episode's serious reality for the most part.
But we also have that thing, which is I don't know how that I felt uncomfortable with, was that bit where the Doctor shows up and they all pretend to have a not a very nice job. You know, and that felt a little bit smug. Like, oh, I'll pretend to work in a warehouse, and you pretend that, and basically we get the impression that these people.
It's the middle class white shame, isn't it? Oh, I'll come and be just like you poor people working in here.
It felt very uncomfortable. Basically, because you've got these two characters, one of which it turns out to be the baddie. Now is also interesting as well, because we have, it starts off as a kind of anti-capitalism, anti-big corporate thing, but it turns out that the corporations aren't the baddies after all, which is a very uncomfortable twist, because the baddie in it is someone who's been replaced by robots.
Yeah. You could say it's turning around going, well, it's the workers at the end of the day. It's those who go on strike and unionize. How dare they go against their capitalist masters?
So that's an approach. It's very odd to see the Doctor, who is normally quite anti-establishment, basically go with establishment. And again, this is what I like about this season, is we are asking awkward questions. We're making the Doctor choose sides that we wouldn't necessarily agree with. And, a lot of people on the internet got very cross with her putting spiders in a cupboard, and got very cross with her defending Space Amazon, if you like. And how can she do this if she's defending Rosa Parks, but she's also working for this? And because one, you've got different writers all the time, and two, you're trying to not find the Doctor. I like it when the Doctor messes up or does something I don't agree with, because drama should do that. I feel like I'm defending a B movie here, but it should make you feel as if I don't agree with what the main character just did. Oh, it's a reaction. We're not getting no reaction. So I'm giving this myself like a 7 out of 10, because I remember really enjoying it, also being scared of it. Also, does Lee Mack die in this?
Oh yeah, he does.
Oh my goodness, I forgot.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, it's a solid 8. I'm borderline 9, but I'm gonna stay with an 8, because I think the ending's a little bit flat. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it again, and I think it's one of the 2 episodes this season that I could go back and watch again happily.
So I feel like we're picking up with this season. I feel like season 11 is, the last 3 episodes we're going on. This was good and this was great and that kind of thing. Can this season keep it up?
No, because we're getting to the Witchfinders, which was the episode I absolutely detested the first time I saw it.
I was going to that basically the Witchfinders for me, Alan Cumming just basically saving the whole episode. If you like,
doesn't
he's
he just?
Brilliant in it. And he comes on with the mask and does this, and he is basically giving it all. And
I love Alan Cumming in anything, so I'm very, very biased. I've got to admit that, but I loved him in this.
I feel that because we know that he doesn't come back, bring him back. He should have been the person at the end of the season finale. Great character, great performance. I don't have as much to say about.
Right. This is another episode where Ryan shines. Yeah, I have to say, and again, it's his interactions with King James, particularly, and I think this is definitely Ryan's story, which is strange because so much of the rest of it is a feminist allegory for empowering women, etc. But Ryan's star in this episode, and I didn't notice that the first time round. No. So this was one of those things where rewatching it kind of gave me a new perspective on it, and I really quite enjoyed Ryan's stuff and the stuff with the King far more. Even if there was one line at one point, "I will fill your king," the creature was saying, and I just went off into a series of titters at that point because I went, "Oh dear, that's very rude."
I remember writing a line for Dr. Witch, which was my sci-fi comedy drama thing. You have one too. You have Dr. Wahizn, and I had to have at some point. We had 2 robots joining together, and I had the line, which is, "Will you be my inside friend?" And you just lost it. You couldn't record it.
I did.
It wasn't that crude. Crude lines.
I'm sorry. I have a prurient sense of humour.
So I'm not as down on this episode as you are. I sort of like the showing up, and there's witches and there's monsters and.
I liked it. I liked this story better when it was Curse of Fenric.
Oh, well, I mean,
It's really my feeling. It's really my feeling. I was watching, going, this is definitely a Curse of Fenric vibe, and that's a classic. This is not a classic by any chalk of the imagination.
What goes wrong for you?
I think there is, as with so much this season, far too much talking, far too much Jodie talking just quickly and quickly. This, because of the kind of the feminist undertones of it, there's an awful lot of assumption that women can be empowered in a period in history when they were not likely to be in this way. So I felt that. I know I'm watching a show about a shape-changing alien, but I felt that tugged at my feeling of reality and historical adventure again. And again, interesting, another historical tale we've got here.
Yeah.
And again, the theme seemed to get again about believing in yourself, and I'm getting kind of sick of this as a theme. I don't mind. It's great. It's a thing we should hold to, but at the same time, there are other positive messages we could be conveying as subtext.
And again, I don't think
I liked it more on a second watch. Again, and like I say, I mean, it would have been down as a 2 or even a 1 the first time I saw it. This was the point at which I almost gave up on the season on the first time.
I'm sort of surprised because I can remember the ending being a bit rushed, and I remember sort of enjoying the beginning of it quite a lot with all the trees and the
sentient mud.
Sentient mud, I like that, and that kind of thing. Then I did feel like they all show up with some torches and stick it in a tree and then it's done. And I just felt like that felt a bit rushed. But I mean, for me, I'm not as angry with it as you are, and I'm well aware they have that.
It's not anger. It's not anger. It's disappointment.
I do find that you have that thing. If you were mentioning like, oh well, females at this point in history wouldn't be this strong, but I mean. I don't think that there's a incongruous strength there, because the Doctor is constantly put down as being a woman continually, not just being a witch. So
just the point at which she announces she's the witch finder with the general with the psychic paper, and people just accept that. No one seems to have a moment of cognition.
No, you see now, Mrs. Ooh, now, yes.
No, I know when he shows it to the king later, but yes.
No, well, when she says it, they all laugh and go, "Don't be ridiculous. How could you possibly be?" So I'm not to knock you down there, but I do feel as if they do have that has always been fascinating for me, actually, where the Doctor shows up and instantly has authority where they are. And like Jodie shows up saying, "Yeah, I'm the witch finder. I've got a piece of paper." And then the king's like, "Of course you aren't. Don't be so silly." You're like, "Oh wow!" In the same
did you not feel that there were moments of Maid Marian and her merry men throughout this whole episode? Okay, well that's fine, but that's as a comedy. For this, I just was. It's trying to be a drama. It's playing its comedy tropes. It just didn't work as an episode for me. But it did a little bit more the second time round. So
I'm going to give this a quite generous 6 out of 10, because all I can remember, I'm afraid, is the good bits at the beginning and the not so good bits where they rush it at the end. But I'm
giving it 5 out of 10.
Jane,
because I'm giving it 5 out of 10 because I genuinely enjoyed it more. I enjoyed Alan Cumming all the more in it, and actually the bits I thought that were bad the first time round actually weren't quite as bad the second time round, but. Okay. It was one of the episodes this season I had to force myself to get through, though, in 2 sittings. I couldn't watch it in one go.
Now, I've got one coming up now, which I really like, and I've seen this several times, and a lot of people didn't like this one. And it's like a horror movie, and it's spooky, and it's weird, and it's got an unnecessary frog at the end. But it takes...
There's no such thing as unnecessary frog. Frogs are magnificent.
So, but in the plot, maybe. So what I like about this one, I'm just going to explain, is that it isn't really explained a great deal. They go to an anti-zone that's a sentient universe that copies things that you like. So Graham gets to meet his dead wife again, which is that's quite strong, and everything. In between there, you meet one of my favourite comedy actors. I've forgotten his name now.
The actor Kevin Eldon.
The actor Kevin Eldon, thank you. He shows up and he's really good. And there's balloons with moths and red thing, and basically there's a lot on show, and there's a lot of creepiness. There's not a lot to the story, but my goodness, it takes you places, and I really liked it. The only thing I thought was a bit strange, out of the blue, was Grace has been wearing this frog thing which is introduced in this episode. And so suddenly when the Doctor gets to meet, her temptation to stay in the anti-zone, it's a frog. It's not Susan. It's not herself. It's not Gallifrey brought back. It's not a new shiny TARDIS. It's not Boxy, returned or anything like that. It's a frog. And that's the only thing that lets it down for me, is that comes out of nowhere, and everything else I really like.
Well, for me, the really bad things in this episode were the music again left me flat, and that's it. I loved this episode.
Hey,
I loved it. I really enjoyed it the first time round with Kablam. It was my sort of other favourite. I'm rewatching it. This is the best episode of the season. There's no argument about that. The stuff between Grace and Graham and Ryan. The emotional on point. The acting is fine. It pays off things. The moment when he finally calls him Grandad. Oh, just wonderful. I liked the universe frog. I like the idea that the Doctor's in this white void apart from this frog, because we've assumed this formed them. And the father and daughter acting team, because of course they genuinely are father and daughter, the two actors. Brought that authenticity to the role. I like the plot. No, everything, and obviously I love Kevin Eldon, so that getting him to become a little bit of comedy, but not too much comedy, just enough. For 11 the episode.
A bit like Alan Cumming. A bit. Yeah. Bring I know he got eaten by moths. Bring that character back. We're about to see the next episode has a returning character, but we've got
what's our rating then for this? For It Takes You Away? Yeah.
I can feel a 10 out of 10 coming in my head, because I keep going through it and going to things that I, don't like. No, like that. And even the frog that I like. I like the imagery of the frog. I just think I have a problem with the fact that the idea of it comes out of nowhere. Suddenly, I've got this frog thing. Where does that come from? And that slightly spoils it for me, because it's like
you're picking hairs here, Elliot. You really are. Yeah.
It's a really cool sequence, and it just feels like in the same way in season 12 when the Master returns, he gets.
Spoiler alert!
Oh well, maybe we'll cut that bit out. But I do a retake. In season 12, where a certain baddie returns, and they're given away by the fact they accidentally mention that they're good at running, and the Doctor says, "It says in your report you weren't." That, like, within 2 seconds, that hasn't been set up at all. And I find with this, if they'd had set up something, the Woman Who Fell to Earth, that Grace had done, it didn't have to be a frog. So we would have had that little callback.
You would, I can accept that, and like I say, for me, it's why there's just a few tiny flaws with it. And I would give It Takes You Away, 9 out of 10, absolutely.
I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 just because of the frog.
But I have to say, it stands head and shoulders above the rest of the season.
Now, wouldn't this episode been a really good, not necessarily season finale? We could have wrapped it then. Yeah. Sadly, we have 2 more episodes to go. But I feel like this we could have ended on this.
I think we could. If we were talking about story arc, and there isn't, we haven't got an overall narrative arc. Well, actually, we have the character arc between Ryan and his grandfather.
Here I am.
Yeah, we've got the story arc between Ryan and his grandfather. That almost was the subtext of the character arc of the season, and so it paid off, and It Takes You Away. The Battle of Ragshkorakulos.
You can see, I thought I was going to pronounce that better than you did.
Go on, yeah. You can have a go as well. We can all have a go.
Ragshkoras Avkolos. Isn't that what you just said? The same thing. Again,
probably not.
What a really stupid title. The Battle of Ranskor Avkolos has got really a very odd title, a little bit like early one with our Conundrum spaceship friend. And I just feel like anybody tuning in, a bit like Castrovalva or Logopolis, I'm just saying gibberish, but you've got what's essentially the season finale. So I feel like it shouldn't be the Battle of the Revenge of the Robots of Death, but it should have a name that pulls you in. This is our 10th episode. We've got this big this is the season finale.
What about What Shores Is Mine? That would have been a good title.
Or tie it in with like the woman who lifted the planet, because
yeah,
bookend,
something like that. This is such a low point of the season for me. It really is.
Odd, because you've got this thing, and they could have called it the planet of death, because or the what are they got these psychic people. The idea is interesting. You've got these psychic people who move around planets.
Yeah, I mean, I just felt this was the scrapings of ideas that didn't fit into other stories, and we just stuffed them all into this bag at the end. Mark season finale, shook it up, and let's see what pours out. And it'll do. This is the student essay that's been submitted at the 2 minutes to closing time. It's not a good season ender. It's not even a good mid-season episode.
I like some of the ideas. You have this idea that you've got a planet full of people who can move around the planet themselves with the psychic stuff. They worship a god. The god turns out to be a baddie that the Doctor had met previously. Okay, we have a planet that if you don't put these things in your ears, you'll go crazy. Right, okay. We're establishing these ideas. Do we do anything with them? Not really, which is such a shame. You've got these lovely little concepts, which is like, and the baddie shows up and doesn't really do a great deal, and then gets put in the deep freeze, and it's a bit, as you say, it's not a great season finale. It would have been maybe, I mean, call me silly, like maybe you could have done this episode 3 episodes in, like, oh, look, there's Tim Shaw again. To just establish,
he's not, I mean, there was part of me thinking, is this Chibnall trying to create his new classic monster? Yeah. A guy who's been in an explosion in a dental warehouse.
Yes.
And again, the whole idea of people worshipping a monster who as a god, it's the Rings of Akaten, and Rings of Akaten is a middling episode with a fantastic song in it. But this is no Rings of Akaten. It's not even that level.
Well, you do have this thing where you've got somebody from Game of Thrones shows up. Well, what we forget to mention, I mean, we just to mention briefly, is there was a trailer at the end of The Woman Who Fell to Earth that was saying, here are the stories. But it was always concentrating on all the actors that were appearing. I remember thinking, a bit weird, because the script editor is a children's thing, CBBC and everything. And I don't remember as a child tuning in to watch a show because there were some actors in it from stuff that my parents watched. I'm interested in the story and the imagination and the spookiness and the funniness. So basically, you do have a lot of very high class actors and famous people showing up in this series who are slightly underused, but aren't necessarily a pulling point for what is essentially still quite, is a bit of a children's show at this point. So you have what is a season finale of a baddie that people didn't really, had the baddie shown up occasionally in little post-credit scenes, or but when I remember seeing the trailer for this and thinking, I wonder who the baddie's going to be. Maybe it will be like a classic Doctor Who person, or maybe it will be something like, maybe it will be an anti-Rosa, something. Maybe the space racist comes back, but this time, But it's not. It's the baddie from the first episode who doesn't really have a real connection to the Doctor, other than I kept thinking as well, when I was watching, I forgot to mention this, in the first 3 or 4 seasons, in the first few episodes of this, baddies disappear. So Tim Shaw disappears, the space race disappears, there's somebody else I've forgotten who also disappears. And I thought, what's going to happen is they're going to have this collation of baddies that all show up. So it'll be the space racist, it'll be the Trump guy, it'll be Tim Shaw, it'll be the person who's in
you were hoping it was going to be a Legion of Doom.
Yeah. And then it isn't. It's just one of them. And I would have had, and then basically the person controlling him is James the First. You've set up some lovely little cameo. Why not?
If only for an excuse of Alan coming in again, I would have been happy with that.
That would be really cool. So we're not,
I was going to say, is that the plea we can make? Can just Alan Cumming be in every episode of Doctor Who going forwards?
I hope so.
Make James the First our new companion. That's what we say.
Yeah. I mean, so you've got Battle of Ranskoor Askolos. I don't imagine you're going to give it a very high mark. Let's hear that mark.
You will be right there. I'm giving it 2 out of 10 because hearing you describe the episode there, I'm going. I watched this about 2 days ago and I could not tell you the plot line. It just washed over me. I say it just a grab bag of things happened. No, Tim Shaw was in it. He ends up in a big tank at the end. Yeah, no, didn't enjoy it.
I'm going to give it a very generous 4. We have got Resolution
of the Daleks.
Yeah. So is this an improvement?
It is. I mean, I think, if we can't treat It Takes You Away as the season finale, this is the season finale. And you know what? Yes, it is. Because for one reason, in The Woman Who Fell to Earth, the Doctor builds her sonic screwdriver in that beautiful moment of, mad tech engineering. In this, the Khalid mutant builds its Dalek suit from scratch. It definitely sets it up as the nemesis to the Doctor, as the Daleks are. But actually, to this Doctor, here is the junk pile Dalek to the Doctor's junk pile screwdriver. Yeah. I like the duality there. That was a nice touch, and I liked the junk Dalek design. Yeah, I like the ideas behind it. I loved Alison from. I'll call it Alison from Ghosts. I'm going to have to call it. My issue with this episode is the only people who die are non-player characters. They're the NPCs. It's the soldiers. It's the police officers. No one who appears to be a named character is ever in any danger. Ryan's dad should have died at the end, because that would have been it's when he's come back, he's sacrificing himself to save his son. He is finally stepping up to be the man he should be, and no, he's saved, everything's fine. And it just goes down. It would have been a moment of wow, no one's safe. Ryan's now going to be even more traumatized and fall off his bike twice as often. But no, I feel they cheaped out on it.
And also, we never see him again. I don't think we did.
He was busy. Right? He was busy selling microwaves. He was busy.
That was the thing. I remember now. So I'm starting to remember the story now. I like the bits you're talking about, but without being a sort of a nerd about film writing, story writing, or whatever it is, and I hate sort of stuff you have to do. Things have to happen by page 11. You have to have a Chekhov's gun, or you have to have a thing in this.
Chekhov's microwave in this.
But that's the thing. I don't like it when you have formulated stories, because you can sort of feel it, kind of like watching an episode of Scrubs. It's very similar. Every 10 minutes this happens, or a film. You're watching a film, and at this point, things are going to go wrong. I don't like that. I like it when things not just surprise. They flow with. So have somebody walking around going, I don't know about you, but I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with this microwave. It's awful. So when also it feels like it's very strange, because we are in the 21st century, and I don't think, I could be wrong, are people walking around with clunky microwaves trying to sell them?
If you've been selling, it should have been an air fryer to bring it bang up to date. Yeah.
Or something.
It's a bit 1980s, a microwave.
Yeah, and it just feels to me like it could have been anything, but also, it could have been a bit more subtle. And it just feels as if, like, I've been carrying this thing around. Oh, if only there was some way we could. It feels like that. And again, we're getting back to whoever's deciding these moments. The script editor works at CBeebies, works at CB. That this is okay if we're watching a kids show. But to have a moment like that,
I think we were robbed though as well of the Dalek reacting to the microwave. I can just I can hear it in a microwave. It would have been great,
Oh, so that would have been. Now, as far as I remember about it, is that there isn't a bing and then it explodes. That would have been funny.
I'd have been happy with that. That would have been okay, because
hang on.
I was viewing this through the lens of being a festive special.
Yeah.
So I'm always a little bit more forgiving for the festive specials, because they are supposed to be a little bit of a taster, or a digestive, or it's an after 8 mint perhaps, because New Year's Day, a glass of Tums.
But the thing is, if it was this is the thing, it's not a Christmas special, because it's not on Christmas Day.
No, it's a festive special.
But it doesn't feel very festive to me, and I think.
Well, they do. I was watching it and going, it's not set at New Year, because you can see the crops in the field, so it's clearly filmed in about August, early September.
I like the idea. I think you sort of vaguely get it.
But it is supposed to be New Year's Day.
Yeah,
because that's
where
part
people
of the
are sort of like, it is one of these things where like I've just remembered. Is this the one where the army attacked the Dalek?
That's right. Oh, it's the one where Unit has been Brexited out of existence.
Now that I found it quite funny. A lot of people said, "Oh, don't bring politics in Doctor Who," and got really annoyed with that. I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was really, really funny. Whether you agree with what happened or not,
it was a taste of real politics. Well, of course, certain deals have fallen apart, so we no longer have Unit. But then armed forces turn up anyway, so it did feel like you didn't have the courage and of your convictions to go through with it.
What about this one?
Out of 10, I gave it 6 out of 10. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It didn't take me away in quite the same way, but it was enjoyable. There were some good performances, and as I said, the Dalek design and that juxtaposition with Jodie's Doctor from the start of the season, for me, made it a pretty decent capstone to season 11.
So you've got that. So I'm going to give it because all I can see is the cheesy microwave bit, and I know there's a bit. When you're thinking of a story and you're trying to think, I like that bit, but all I've got is the microwave coming towards me. So I'm going to give it similarly a 6. So we've looked at all of season 11. And I think we've only just started doing this. We don't have a sort of quite a regular summing up now, like we did with the season 17. And I don't like being too like this is bad, this is good. But it sounds like you really enjoyed yourself watching something you didn't think you were going to.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I say, it was the not resolution, it was revelation of the season that actually it wasn't quite as bad as I remembered it. There were some bits that were still not great. Has to be said. It was still quite ropey. If this was supposed to be the season of reinvention of the Doctor, going in a completely bold new direction, I think it did feel a little bit like dumbing down to too much of a degree at times. I still hadn't gelled with Jodie's Doctor at this point. I still felt like, what's her overriding characteristic? For you, it's the box. For me, it was her chatty, 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 chatty. I'm chatty, chatty, chatty. And I was like, oh, that's just irksome rather than enduring. And I was kind of, still waiting to warm to her a bit. And as I say, I love her as an actor, which was surprising me that we hadn't got a single moment this season that I can point to and say, and at that moment she was the Doctor.
Yeah, you have that thing, you were saying about Matt Smith's second episode, or you can have like David Tennant's moments. When you've got like Jodie, you have this situation where she is being given direction in a certain way. They say go kooky, go silly, go light, because we don't want to put people off. But I mean, we will see her do bigger, more emotional acting in later seasons. I'm trying to pin this down with season 11. I do feel that we have got a lot of potential. We've got these new assistants. We're going in we're definitely going in a new direction.
Friends of the Doctor, not assistants.
No, sorry, FOD. we've got the FOD, and we are definitely trying to. I do not feel that we are at any point treading water as far as Doctor Who is concerned. It might be cliche in sci-fi terms,
but it's interesting. One thing, Elliot, from what we've been talking about throughout the season, we've kind of talked about the companions, let's call it companions, to a degree. But Yaz, throughout this season, has been the one we've spoken about the least. And I think that's to her detriment. Yeah. Because, again, tremendous actor. But she seems to be poorly served, despite the fact there's at least 2 episodes where she's kind of at the centre of it. Which is disappointing.
You have this difficult thing of, like, when you had, for old school Doctor Who fans, when you had Nyssa and Tegan and Adric, and they made a decision to kill off one of those people, just in case you haven't seen it. And with this, imagine if you'd had, Yaz and Graham and I've forgotten his, sorry,
Ryan,
and then one of them either left or died or something, and you go, wow, will we ever see them again? And that's what I feel is interesting, is that Chib was going, no, we mustn't do that. So they didn't kill off the dad. They didn't do this. They didn't make the TARDIS disappear for the whole season.
It's a little too safe if you're core cast in an episode, but whether you're a companion, whether you're supporting cast, 95% of you make it through. And if you look at it's like a Tennant series, there's a high chance that actually the guest cast is not going to make it to the end of the episode.
Yeah. I mean, Captain Jack gets killed at the end of, is it season
1?
He does. And
yeah, it's parting of the ways.
But then he suddenly wakes up, and you're like, what?
He gets better.
Yeah. So I think we've sort of summed up that quite well. I've rather enjoyed going through that. I don't know as yet what season you'd like to pick on, because you've had one that we both enjoy. We've had one that was quite risky. So are we going to go for another classic? We should go for another classic.
I think we should definitely go for one of the classics here. I mean, should we go way back to one of the very early seasons? Is that risking ones we've not seen enough of the episode between us?
Well, I mean, do you want to pick a Pertwee? Because I mean, I could talk about the first ever Pertwee season.
Pick up a Pertwee, yes.
I mean, we'll know that when we do it. I haven't decided yet. So
okay, we'll decide amongst ourselves. But I think Pertwee's a good direction to go next. That's a real contrast. Go from the female Doctor to the Doctor who might have a slight of a reputation with females.
Yes, thank you, my dear. Also, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? With Capaldi, I felt like in the 3 seasons that he did, he quite changed not just his outfit, he changed his whole performance. And with John Pertwee,
and that's
very different.
And that's with Jodie. That's still one of my issues. Is that I wish she'd evolved her costume over her tenure in the TARDIS. Yeah, I was looking forward to her costume evolving around her as she became more confident in the role, as her Doctor defined more what she was, and it was still kind of the same outfit by the end. So.
When she appears out of that curtain, that feels like this is a costume, not something that she's found and put together.
Oh, we're back then to the Colin Baker issue of it's costume, not clothes.
Well, let's not be tempted by season 22 yet.
Let's not. No, not yet. Not yet, but down the road.
But I shall stop recording, and we shall.
See you next time.
Yay. How do I stop recording? How do you turn this thing off then?